Alright, I got it.
Okay.
Alright. 1, 2, 3, say lay. I had to bring like a little bit of Cantonese
Oh my
in.
gosh. Okay, action.
Action.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back
Yes.
to the Imperfect Podcast live.
I know, it's the first time.
Oh my goodness! it's
You
the first
guys
time they
are-
can see our faces.
I know.
They get to see that we actually weren't lying. That we are.
We are who we are.
And I'm black.
And I'm yellow.
No,
I guess we'll just introduce ourselves.
that was awkward.
That's hilarious. If you guys have been listening and wondering whose voice it's stalking, I'm Steven. I'm the one who likes to explain, over-explain, and then explain again. It's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. And what's up, guys? My name is Akko, and I am the one that makes no sense half the time I'm talking. So together we make the Imperfect Podcast.
I know. Honestly, most of our episodes, I don't know how anyone tracks along
I know.
with
Oh my
us.
goodness. First of all, they're so long. Second of all, like we take an hour and a half to get to the point. And third of all, I don't even know. I don't even think.
See,
it's
we're lost already. We're lost already. Oh, it's
and
happening.
Fourth of all, every single podcast has had food references, so it's needed for us to like actually bring food. Now that
We do have to
recording
make
videos,
food.
We gotta make food. We gotta put food on the table so that you guys can see that. Yes, we're always talking about food, but we also love eating food as well. So we'll get
Yes, we do love eating food. Speaking of food, I actually want to try out. I was on YouTube, and I was seeing this Korean fried chicken recipe that I really want to try in the air fryer.
that. Okay.
I'm going to make it because it looks
Okay.
delicious.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
maybe the next one
Yeah.
we might make it.
Oh, okay.
But Akko
Yes.
sprung this on me. Real quick, I had no idea I was going to be singing in front of a camera.
Yeah, so we have the full setup. This is actually my basement of my home. So welcome to my home officially. And I think it was like 3 or 4 days ago, almost a week ago, I was checking Steven and I was like, hey, we need to record another podcast. Actually, he texted me. He was like, hey, we need to record another episode. And I was
Yes.
like, ooh. Actually, that's funny that you said that because I was, thinking about this lately, and I wanted to add a new setup to our podcast. I actually want to record them.
Yes.
I want to put videos on them, and I
Yeah.
don't think he caught that because after that, I sent like a list of topics that we want to talk about,
Yes.
and then it didn't like click with him up until
No,
like
no.
an hour ago when he showed up. And I didn't have anything set up upstairs, and he was like, "Wait, we're recording."
I
like,
was so confused. I thought Akko was about to be like, hey, why don't we take the knife off and play some FIFA? I'm like, this is what we're doing.
No,
But-
but the whole setup was downstairs, so here we are, and
Yes.
I kind of just got him out of the blue. But no, I think it's gonna be good, and the best things happen when they're like candid and like you haven't
Oh, for sure.
set them up and stuff. So yeah, but it's been a long time since we last met up. Like, what you been up to since I think the last podcast?
Since
we
last
released
year?
was, like October.
Yes.
So like months and months ago, man.
It's been so long.
Yeah.
Man, obviously Christmas, I went home,
Yeah.
ate a bunch of Chinese food.
Wow.
I actually had someone ask me, like, what is like classic Christmas food? I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know. What is classic Christmas food? I'd ask I'm a dental assistant, so I'd ask my patients, what do you guys eat? They're like, ham and like, I don't know, like casseroles. I'm like,
Mhm.
what did we eat? My sister made like a Chinese salad that was bomb,
Mhm.
and then made like, I think we made dumplings. It was so good. It was so good.
That sounds really good.
But yeah, really updates are, man, our community group, just between us, like our community group is growing, and
Yeah.
it's seriously one of the most exciting things I've ever gotten to watch,
Yeah.
let alone be a part of.
Yeah.
But updates about me, really not much. I actually am, I don't know if I told you, I find out if I get into dental school at the end of this month.
Okay.
But I'm also considering going into chiropractic school.
Oh.
And so
I'm gonna need that. You know how much I'm gonna need that.
I know. I actually did think of you. I was like, I could adjust Akko's back, bro.
The audience is gonna watch me like crack my neck like once every 5 seconds in this video recording. In this.
So
That's actually pretty cool, man.
yeah, I actually
Okay.
would find out if I don't get into dental school.
Yeah.
Even if I do, I might go to chiropractic school. I would go at the start of May.
What sprung up the interest with chiropractic practice and stuff?
So Erin, your wife,
Okay.
actually her friend
Sylvia.
Sylvia
Yep.
came down to visit,
Yep.
and she started talking about chiropractic. This is way off
Yeah.
topic of what what we're even going to be talking about, but and this, if you guys don't like
Just
science
fast
stuff,
forward.
yeah, just fast forward. But she
But
was
shout out to Sylvia, by the way. She's
Yes.
about to get married in a couple of months. So Sylvia, we love you. We're excited
So
for your
exciting.
wedding. If you're listening to this, shout out to you. You're awesome.
Sylvia, if I end up going to chiropractic school, just know you can have credit for it. But it was really, really cool. So
Yeah.
what she talked about is, as a chiropractor, she got to talk about what she does and how she gets to like interact with her patients
Mhm.
and what she gets to do in terms of adjustments. And she told me the story of a guy who couldn't see colors,
Okay.
right? Kind of like Mason, except this guy was like, kind of like short term. I don't know what exactly the situation was. Mason, I don't think we can fix.
Oh man.
But-
Shots fired. Shots fired.
But basically, this is super cool. I don't know how it worked, but basically the nerve that connects to the eyes
Mhm.
for your brain to receive color
Mhm.
goes through the spine,
Ooh.
and that nerve was being pinched
Okay.
by a misalignment, like either the neck or
Yeah.
the spine or something like
Okay.
that. And he and Sylvia might have to, correct me, but basically he got adjusted,
Mhm.
and over the course of a couple months, he could start seeing colors again.
Wow.
It was incredible. I was like, this is really, really cool. And so I started really loving that because I was like, man, this is really cool. I get to work like one-on-one with patients. I knew a lot of my friends in college
Mhm.
who had problems. Like I went to like
Yeah.
almost an all-athlete school.
Yeah.
So one of my friends, literally one of the best volleyball players I know, she was amazing,
Mhm.
but she stopped being able to play as much because she had sciatica,
Mhm.
which is basically like consistent nerve pain
Mhm.
in your leg.
Mhm.
And so that was a huge problem for her.
So you're going to be a chiropractor now. That's awesome.
I think
man.
so,
I think
yeah.
that's unique. That's pretty cool.
And then, just going home and visiting family has been,
Yeah.
it's been, different. And then as I work in the dental field, I swear straight up, everyone is falling apart.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys ever go, well, hopefully you guys go every 6 months, but if you do,
Yeah.
know that whoever's working on you,
Yeah.
they're falling apart at the
Yeah.
seams. Like, everyone's falling
Crazy.
apart in the dental world.
Wow. How does your boss feel about that?
Oh, he wants to retire, man.
Yeah.
He wants to retire.
He just opened a new
This
office.
man is like 40, I don't know, 44 years old. But he actually was like, hey man, if you want to open a chiropractor, if you want to be a chiropractor,
Mhm.
I'll give you a space in my office.
Okay.
And you can just work on me.
Wow.
And maybe I'll just join you. And just, we'll not do this dentistry thing anymore.
That's crazy.
As I'm wearing a dentistry shirt. But, yeah, that's kind
That's
of like
cool.
life updates.
Okay.
I haven't talked about this much, but like last year,
Mm.
it was a rough Christmas with family.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into dirty details, but
Mm.
the easiest way to say is family is family.
Yeah.
But I got this really encouraging text from my sister
Mm.
who said she feels like relationships between some of my siblings are being like restored, and
Mhm.
they're trying to formulate some semblance of a relationship. It might
Mhm.
not be the best, but relatively speaking, it's like God's moving.
Yeah.
And I truly believe He's working in my sister's faith,
Yeah.
and even just having conversations with her. Like, honestly, I think she's coming up next weekend, so
Mhm.
I hope you'll get to
Okay.
meet her. But
Yeah, I love that.
that's kind of life updates, and then
So, stupid question. Did you get to celebrate New Year's twice? Because the Chinese New Year
Okay,
just happened like
so-
a week ago, right?
I'm actually going this weekend,
Oh.
and I'm so
okay.
excited because we're doing hot pot
Okay.
and bao, which is
Okay.
one of my favorites. So
I think Kate, Blake's girlfriend, she was here yesterday. We offered her dinner, me and my wife, and she was talking about making that for us. That's basically
hot pot, yes.
you have like a whole a pot, and then you have like spicy, and then not spicy, and then you have like rice and like
Yeah.
veggies and stuff. You
Yes.
just eat it together, right?
Yep,
That
that's
looks
exactly.
so. It looks so amazing.
It's-
And I want to try that sometime.
It is awesome.
Mhm.
May have to just take you back home and do
Oh,
it.
please do, man.
It'd be so much fun.
Within a heartbeat. Here we are talking about food already.
I know we're talking about food, but realistically, what Chinese New Year is gonna be is, if you guys have seen Crazy Rich Asians,
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities to that. A lot of similarities to Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah.
We'll do Hot Pot.
Mhm.
We'll, if you guys know the tile game Mahjong, we're gonna play that. It's the gambling game.
Yeah.
The
With
tiles.
with the dominoes.
They're not dominoes, but they look like
Okay.
dominoes.
Yes.
But you always see a bunch of old people on a square table,
Yep.
and they're just shuffling these
Yep.
tiles,
I
and
think-
then
yep.
no one's speaking, and they're playing.
I think they actually played it in the movie Crazy Rich Asians.
They did. That's what I'm saying. That's in the movie. I'm telling you, that movie is scarily
That was actually a
accurate.
good scene. If you guys haven't watched that movie,
Oh,
that
it's so
scene
good.
with the
Where she lays it down in front of the
Yeah.
people.
Oh, you don't want to spoil it, but that was a good
Hey,
scene. That was
every-
a great scene.
Every Asian
Yeah.
wants to have the confidence to do that
Yeah.
to their future in-laws.
Oh my goodness.
So
Yeah, that's actually a recommendation movie for you guys who haven't watched it, or if
Very
you've
good
watched
movie.
it and it's been a minute and you want to just find something like burn 2 hours on. Great movie.
it's a great one.
Yeah.
I love it. You'll learn a lot. I actually
And you're
think
gonna
it's-
get married soon.
Yes.
No, but that's awesome, man. That's pretty cool. I think on my end, as far as updates, I've just been busy, and you know that. You've
Oh, for
gotten to
sure.
say that. And me and Aaron both have been busy.
I'm gonna say the last time I
Yeah.
saw you, it
Literally.
feels like
Yeah.
was the last time we recorded the
Literally,
podcast.
Like, the last time like we hung out and actually talked and stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, so the month of December specifically has been insane. So my work, I work for a company called Cerner. I'm Oracle Cerner, I guess, because we got acquired by
Same
Oracle.
difference.
I know, yeah. But my contract that I work for them with is with the government. So they had me fly out to Atlanta. So I was out there in Atlanta for 2 weeks, and shout out to my brother. He actually is stationed somewhere close to there. So I got to spend a little bit of time with him when I was there. And then right when I was in Atlanta, my wife Erin, her work sent her to LA. So
Yes.
in December, she was in LA, I was in Atlanta.
Y'all got split.
It was just insane. And then we ended up,
Oh, Mike got married.
yeah, I was gonna get there.
Yes. I was like, that's the next thing. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah. So got to see family. My family originally is from right outside of Savannah in Georgia. So
Mhm.
shout out to
Yeah.
fam, Bradley, Brent Jr., Maria, Baba, Mama. Shout out to
All
you
the
guys.
shout-outs.
Yeah. So got to go see him. And then when we got back after 2 weeks, we celebrated our brother Mike's. He got married. Mike and Beth, shout out to you guys as well.
Yeah. So happy.
Great wedding, beautiful wedding.
That was
Oh my
honestly a
goodness,
great
it was
wedding.
awesome. It was a lot of fun. They got married at this little. It was like a farm, but it wasn't really a farm.
Yeah, it's not necessarily. It's
It was
like
like a ranch almost.
you can tell it's
Yeah.
like a wedding venue.
It's a wedding venue.
It's a wedding venue,
Yeah.
but it's like in these like backwoods neighborhood, like in
Yeah.
the backwoods neighborhood, like
Yeah.
you're driving past people's like front lawns,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like a little spot where like you
Yeah.
can get married.
It was beautiful. It was actually similar to a spot that me and Aaron got married. We got married actually at Oakland Farms, and they had horses in the background and everything. I think the only thing that was missing in Mike's and Beth's wedding were the horses and
With the
stuff.
horses.
But it was beautiful.
I will say I really appreciate the brevity
Yeah,
of the wedding,
yeah,
and I know this for a fact. There's a lot of people who said it, and I also felt it. I loved how raw
Mm.
the wedding was.
yeah,
There wasn't a lot of fluff.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Mike was honest.
Yeah.
Beth was honest.
Yeah.
Mike
It
was
was-
Mike was honest. He was fumbling the bag like, with the ring and all
Oh,
these
their
things.
shoes, they had like Nike sneakers.
Yes.
shoes.
And the pastor
It
was
Pastor
pretty-
was
pretty-
spot on. It was
I will
really
say, someone told me this.
Yeah.
I think it might have been John. He noticed it.
Mm.
I don't know if you noticed it, but the pastor ripped his pants.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did. He ripped his pants, and he just like looks down. It's like, just keep going. It was like in the middle of the
I didn't
ceremony.
notice. That's funny that you mentioned that because I forget who it was. I think it might have been, and we're just exposing anybody.
Yeah, this is
But I think it was either a family member or the photographer. Not the photographer, the videographer. I don't remember which one, but one of them had their zipper like down.
down.
And I was just like,
Wow.
I couldn't say anything because like, how? I mean, it's like, hey, buddy, like, you need to zip up.
Yeah. No.
But yeah,
Oh
so
my
I was
God.
like, oh.
How? What is? Okay. I don't want to keep on this point, but what is the proper way to explain to someone how you like tell them like you can't motion that
Yeah.
because you're like this looks weird in public, but I don't want to be the person to tell you
Yeah.
that I'm looking there. It's weird.
Anyways, it was not even getting.
If you know, please tell me because
It's
I
not-
have no perfect way of knowing how to tell someone that.
No. But the wedding overall was amazing. It was beautiful. So just amazing couple, amazing couple. And then after that, it was right around Christmas time. It was actually a week before Christmas, and me and Aaron and our two dogs, Nala and Roby,
So
we
cute.
decided oh, they're cute
So
until
cute.
they get to be annoying. Oh my goodness. Anyways, so we decided to go up to Wisconsin, and here in the Midwest, we live in Kansas City. For you guys that don't know that,
Go Chiefs.
we had the biggest snowstorm of the year.
That was
today.
terrible.
It was horrible.
That was awful.
And the funny thing is we decided to leave on that Wednesday. The snowstorm hit.
Yeah.
So we get off the road, and the trip between our home and Aaron's family's home in Wisconsin is 9 hours. It's actually 9 hours and like 3 minutes to be exact. So we leave our home at 6 o'clock p.m. because I love driving at night. And it just, after 30 minutes, headed towards Princeton where Elliot Mason is from,
Yeah.
I just start seeing rain that turns into snow, and I'm like, oh no.
It's terrible.
And I kid you not, after hour, after hour, it just gets worse and worse and worse. I kid you not, Steven, a 9-hour trip ended up taking 13 hours.
So bad.
It was the most annoying, the most horrible, actually at times the riskiest drive. Like the most dangerous drive I've taken so far.
For real,
and I was
it's
like,
terrible.
oh my goodness, it was horrible. And it just got worse and worse. And the more north we got, the worse it got. But by God's grace, we got there safely. Celebrated Christmas with Aaron's family. That was awesome. And then came back for New Year's, and then that's when we met back up. Because we had a get-together at my place.
Oh my gosh, I forgot we had that conversation.
I know, it's crazy.
No, we have talked since October.
Yeah, we have talked since October. But celebrated New Year's with a couple of our friends.
Yes.
We have here. And then we just got back to work. And for me and Aaron actually, one thing that we've really been focusing on this new year is we have been hosting a lot. So I think in the last 2 weeks, we've hosted, I think, 6 or 7 couples, almost 8 couples actually, at our home, and it's been beautiful to just kind of share our relationship, me and Aaron's relationship, but also get to hear our community's relationship.
Yeah.
And just being in a position where we can kind of speak truth to the people who are dating, and obviously, actually most of them that we hosted weren't married. I think there was one couple that was married, and it was beautiful because they actually got to pour into us and kind of mentor us when we had them over. Shout out to Devontae and Morgan and your little baby Sayla. She's
so cute. I've seen her once. I was like, half these girls are when are they gonna see this little girl away?
Yeah. But yeah, so it's been beautiful, honestly, Steven, just hosting and kind of getting into that mindset of being a host, you know, as a couple with me and Aaron. And it's been amazing. I mean, on the one hand, I love to cook, I love to prepare meals, I love to invite people, but also kind of entering into that routine of being intimate, being there. And fun fact for you guys that don't know me that well, I'm actually an introvert. I do well being introverted. So for me to constantly like be expressive, for me to constantly be hosting, it's something that doesn't come natural. So it was actually a really good way for me to be challenged a little bit, to get out of my comfort zone and just be loving to the couples that God has placed in our community, me and Aaron, and we've been enjoying it a lot. It's been draining, don't get me wrong, but we've been enjoying it a lot. So that's partially why like kind of meeting together has been kind of put on the back burner, and it's like I know Steven is doing a great thing leading.
No.
Steven is like, I know Akko is trying to avoid me. And, it's just...
Honestly, I will tell you straight up, Akko is, like, there's a lot of thoughts that can potentially go through my mind, and sometimes I'm like, he's just trying to pass off the mantle to me, give me more responsibility. In other ways, I'm like, dude, this is so challenging because what you're doing for hosting, it's like, gosh, I want to do that too. And so even being spurred on by you and being challenged by you, like, we haven't gotten to meet up, but man, I do want to host. And so like for me, like, that's one thing, like, I don't know maybe it's just about me, but like, I always think my space is too small to host. And so I shy away from it, maybe just because like, maybe I'm like embarrassed. That's probably what it is. It's just I'm embarrassed of this space. But even just inviting like the guys from the accountability group, shout out to John, Chad, and
it's just episode 4.
Now Cam. No, Chad, John, and Cam. Yeah. It was like honestly such a true joy to have them over and like the value it brought. Because I think oftentimes like I mean even in this podcast like I get caught up in thinking that every single conversation has to be a deep conversation.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think that is because I'm legitimately most comfortable in that.
Yeah.
because I can talk ideas for hours on end, right? But to like be able to like invite like the guys over just to hang out, even though it turned into a Bible study, like I could tell John was tired, and I was like, I don't even. In the moment, I was like, yeah, I want to have him over, but I was like, I don't want to have a deep conversation with him right now.
Yeah.
I just want this dude to relax. Like, this guy looks so tired. Like, I just want him to be happy and laugh right now. And so, thank you. Like, it was honestly very challenging, and like, it is like, one thing that I knew was true about you is that you wanted to host and you wanted to do that. And you did that before Aaron even came along. Right? And I think that's so... Like, that in itself is very important because, you know, this is oftentimes taught by pastors, is you're only becoming more of who you already are right now. Right? There's nothing, like, you being married doesn't, like, just magically change you. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I think that
honestly... You're turning.
I was going to say, that segues. That's kind of what I was going to segue into is, you know, the topic for today is just the idea of new year, new me. And you see that all the time over social media. I mean, I heard it growing up, and I never bought into the idea. I think there are obviously times where you see success stories on social media where, like, I love it. Like, I am a sucker for the weight transformation, like, videos of, like, just these super long commits of, like, I want to make a change. Yeah. But those are the success stories. Yeah. You don't see the 95% fall by the wayside into oblivion. Yeah. Of where no one can see it.
It's a good point. It's a very good point.
Right? Yeah. And so I think, I mean, Aka, you brought up this topic of new year, new me versus new year, same God. And honestly, I never thought about that topic, but I really am interested, one, before we dive into it, like, why did that even spring into your head?
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head right there, where you said something that a pastor of yours has said in the past. And
I think it's from the porch.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, the porch.
You only become more of who you already are. When God just continues to kind of show you who you already are and kind of enhance himself through that. Yeah. Instead of giving you, or each year that you flip the calendar year, you're like, oh, man, it's 2023. I'm going to look back at 2022 and, like, I'm just going to rip that up and throw that in the trash. It's a new year. You know, that kind of mindset is something that I was kind of having. Not kind of having, excuse me. But it's funny because I remember I was in Atlanta on my work trip. And actually, I take that back. It was right before Atlanta. And this is actually going to be me kind of being humbled here in a second and kind of exposing myself. Oh my gosh. But okay, we're going to go for it. So it was 3 weeks before I had to leave for Atlanta. And shout out to my brother. I have an older brother. His name is Brandon. He's in the military, in the Green Berets specifically.
Yeah, man's yoked.
Big guy.
Seen it.
Big guy. Over 200 plus pounds of pure muscle. This guy, he's a big deal. Like, you can look him up. We have the same exact name. So just search up William Aka, but instead of Bill, put Brandon. On Instagram, I think his profile is public, and you'll just see this man is amazing. Like, I love him to death. He's one of my biggest inspirations when I do life. And it's funny because I knew that he was gonna be in Atlanta when I was gonna get sent there for work. So the weeks preceding my trip, I wasn't feeling healthy as far as physical wise, as far as my weight, as far as my body, and like I wasn't exercising right. Yeah. And there's a lot of different factors that led me to be like that, but the biggest factor is I was just being lazy. I work from home a lot, and I actually, for you guys that work from home, I hope that you enjoy it, because I've been working from home for the last 3 years of my life, and it's just sucked the living soul out of me. And it's brought so much stress and so much toxicness to me personally, because I've created this mundane routine of being at home and like really abusing the leisure that comes with that in a lot of ways. So a lot of that kind of played into how my physique was, or how my physique is still right now.
Yeah.
And my mentality behind like being active and being somebody that was continuously exercising and stuff like that. So in the weeks preceding my trip to Georgia, I was like, yo, dang it, I'm gonna go meet my brother. I'm gonna go meet up with my brother. The last time I saw him was at my wedding a year ago, actually. So I was like, yo, it's been a year since I saw my brother.
Yeah.
Like, you know, this dude is big into working out. He's big into physique. He's big into soccer. Like, I want to show myself presentable, you know?
Yeah.
So I created this routine where I was gonna go to my local gym, and I was gonna work out. I was gonna shred my fat. I was gonna, you know, get my abs back. All these different things that I was planning. And guess how far into it I got?
Like a month.
It was 3 weeks preceding to my trip. I was loyal for, I think it was like a week and 3 days. And that's not me saying that everybody's gonna fail or I wasn't loyal enough. That's just me saying from my perspective, it's a mindset that I put because I knew that I was seeing somebody that I loved and I cared about, and I wanted to show myself presentable to him.
Yeah.
So when I actually did, when I was actually in Atlanta and buried me, so I, you know, seeing him, and we actually went out to go play soccer a couple of times, and it was good. Like, and I felt so, what's the word, insecure at times, and I was like, man, like I didn't reach my goal. You know, maybe he's looking at me and he's like, oh, you put a little bit of weight. It's actually funny because my parents mentioned that I put on a little bit of weight when I went to go see him.
That's a normal thing in my household,
later.
bro.
No, it's funny because like, so when I was seeing family, this idea or this thought process started running into my mind, and I was like, man, nah, it's almost the end of the year. Once the new year comes, that's when I'm actually gonna like put my foot down and actually like, transform myself. And I was starting to think like that. I'm like, bro, why are you thinking like that? The new year is not gonna be the green light for you to actually get fit. You getting fit and the green light for you to getting fit doesn't have to take a new year to ignite you to do that. Right. So that's kind of like where it started.
I see what you're saying.
And it kind of got affirmed by me or to me through other people, and whether it was online or whether it was through social media, whether it was through like coworkers, or even my own family, kind of having like resolutions and asking me about my resolutions, and I was like, why do we have to have resolutions? Why can't we just, you know, figure out what we want to do right now and do it right now? Why do we have to wait until it's a new year? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like where the topic kind of came out of. And then I saw this I forget where I saw it. I really do. If I remember during the podcast, I'll mention it. But it was something along the lines of, even though we go into the new year trying to change who we are, God goes into the new year still the same. He is the same today, tomorrow, yesterday, and forever. Yeah. So I was like, let's talk about this idea about like New Year's resolutions, new year, new me, versus each new year that comes to be, God is still the same, and kind of navigate about how we can like just have conversations around that and stuff. So that's kind of like where it started, and let's see where it developed.
Yeah, let's tackle it, because I just want to kind of dive into this thought process of why people even get captivated by this idea of new year, new me.
Why gyms get so much money within the month of January.
Right, yeah, like they just get it. And you know, you touched on, and I don't think this is for everybody. Yeah. But I'm going to just kind of touch on this idea that you said, I'm really just trying to present myself for someone. You know, and it's like, well, sooner or later, that person's not a priority. So then you forget it. You're like, well, it's not a big deal because they're not going to see me. Yeah. You know, or because it's a new year, I'm going to do this new thing. Well, what happens when this new year becomes an old year? What happens when it becomes mundane again?
When does it become an old year? Actually, that's a question for you guys, the audience. When does a new year become an old year? Is it on the last day of the year, or is it a couple months before the year ends, or is it right after it begins?
I think it's the time where everyone starts saying, and maybe this is just a Midwest thing, but it's whenever people say, "Gosh, this year's flying by." And it always happens.
I'm saying that right now. It's already been friggin' 28 days, or almost 20 days.
I honestly always think it's the latter half of the summer, because what happens is, and this again, bear with me, is what I think is like a lot of families have their kids and they want to do all these things, and since they don't get to do all the things, they say this year's flying by too fast. I didn't get to do all I want. There's not enough time.
So it all comes back to time.
Right. And I think that's one of the things is in this idea of new year, new me, you're saying, I haven't made the time to do the things that I want or that I think I really want. And I'm trying to keep everything that I have right now plus this. So in the time that you're like, hey, I'm trying to, well, I'm going to say faithful, but still pursue my wife.
Yeah.
I'm going to pursue my wife. I'm going to invest in this community group. Yeah. I'm going to still be in my relationship with God. I'm also going to be working. I'm also trying to I don't know what career, I don't know what God has for me. Trying to do all these things. Shoot, I've lost time for my body. What I used to think was important. What I know is important, but I haven't been able to integrate that. I haven't been able to pass it on. And oftentimes there's a lot of people who either in high school or college, they're like college athletes, and they're like, I miss when I looked like that, or when I was as disciplined as that. Right? And that's not, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. You recognize that is of value, but remembering what it took to get there. Right? Yeah. And so, man, we go 100 different ways with this. I'm sorry. My mind is just racing. I'm racing. I don't run, but in my mind, I run. Yeah. But I think contrasting that with this New Year, same God, is asking yourself, okay, well, man, we're going back we're going back into the other topic that we wanted. Yeah. But I will say, in my opinion, it's what does God have for me this year? Because, and this is why, it feels like.
Oh, let me ask a small question. What does God want for me this year?
Want for me this year?
Do you think? And this is not for all the cases, but do you think in some cases that thing that God wants for you this year could be the exact same thing God wanted for you the year before?
Yeah.
Or 2 years before?
Yeah.
Do you think that could be a possibility?
Let me rephrase that question in just a biblical lens, is the way we should view it. Not what does God want for me. Here's a better question. In answering this new year, same God is, in this new year, God, how do you want me to draw closer to you or resemble you more? Okay.
So you're highlighting the year, and then you're adding a new factor into it and saying, hey, now that we're looking at this timeline, this concept of time through the lens of there's been a break in the year, now it's a new calendar year. Now what do you want me? In a sense, so you're basically using the new year as a quote-unquote season in this new season.
For sure. And this is the reason why. For me, I don't believe we should predicate our lives off of resolutions. I think that's a little silly. I think it works, but I think this is why it has weight to our walk, is because there's a lot of people who do. There's a lot of people who end up moving, who base their decisions at the end of the year, I'm going to move. Hey, it's the end of the school year. I'm going to go move to this college. Hey, I just graduated. I'm coming back home. Right, so there's a lot of shifting. So I'm actually going to pull this over to Matthew 28. And this is...
Okay, I like it.
You're going to like this.
Okay, Matthew is always good.
You weren't there actually during our meeting on Tuesday, but Matthew 28, 19 through 20, right? It says... this is super common. It says, "Go, therefore, and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Amen. Right? And, we've talked about this a lot, and has been, talked about a lot, is the baptizing them, that as you are going means wherever you're at. Well, that also means, kind of in another ways, whoever's coming into your life. Right?
Yeah.
So, that way. God, who are you bringing into my new year. I might not be shifting gears. I might not be moving, but God, who are you drawing close to me? Who are you? What work do you have for me? How am I supposed to draw close to you?
Okay.
Who are you placing in front of me that you want me to invest into, you want me to minister to? Right?
Yeah.
Now, obviously that doesn't always fall in line with like the working out thing, right? And I think that is a good goal. I think it is super important to take care of your body. And that's where you start making like, okay, yeah, God is bringing a lot of people into my life, but there's also like boundaries and like what sort of lifestyle do I need to take care of myself in order to minister to others. Which is, again, this is splitting into like 1,000 different highways and byways, okay?
It's definitely, and I do want to predicate what I'm about to say, or what we're talking about with this. I'm not in any way bashing anyone that has resolutions or anyone that has goals going into the new calendar year. I think I'm just bringing a topic that I think I'm curious to talk about and see what your opinions are and what you guys might even think, and if this is something that you guys might relate with. In that, let's take it this way. When we live here in America, obviously. When we look at, I would argue 85 to 95% of the American companies or companies that are here in America. This is something that I was telling my brother John, shout out to you, John Mudd, on New Year's, actually on the New Year's party. When everybody was like 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year, and then everybody's asking like, oh, what's your resolution? What's your resolution? And I think I was telling him, I think you probably talked to somebody. We got into this conversation, and I was like, tell me of a company, and if you guys know of a company or you find a company, please put it in the comments or put it somewhere where we can see it. Of a company that starts their fiscal year on January 1. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think many companies, if any companies at all, starts their fiscal year on January 1.
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do.
No.
You know? And I'm like, that's interesting. They start their fiscal years during the fourth quarter or the first quarter, whatever quarter of the year that they're looking towards. But I just mentioned that so like cheekily out there when I was talking to John Mudd. I was like, but for us, it's so evident to like once January 1 comes, okay, we have whole new books with goal sets, with New Year's resolutions, and like with, you know, a 365-day plan and how I'm gonna accomplish this. It's funny, 2 years ago, this should tell you guys how loyal I am and how like mature I am in staying the course. 2 years ago, my New Year's resolution was to play the guitar.
Yes, I remember this.
Up until this day, I know 2 chords. You know, I have my guitar sitting up there.
But, yes, I do remember this. That was hilarious.
But it's something that, you know, we all do, whether or not we want to do it or we like doing it. Once the new year hits, our mindset shifts and we're like, okay, it's a new year. Let me start setting my priorities, or let me start planning. Let me start focusing. Forecasting. Excuse me, for this new year. Where do I want to travel? You know, what family members are we going to see during the holidays this year? Yeah. You know, when am I going to take my vacation days? You know, when am I going to propose if you're in a serious relationship? Yeah. When are we going to plan on spring break? What are we going to do? You know, all these different things that, you know, are kind of repeating themselves from the years before. And this is where the aspect of God coming into the conversation is like, when we're sitting here planning all these new things that we're planning all these different things that we're looking to do differently than the year before. Is God in the position where he's just still the same? His mindset is still the same. His plan is still the same. His forecast is still the same. His spring break plans are still the same, quote unquote. Yeah. You know, he's traveling, his divine moments that he's going to have us do or meet with or talk to or be a part of our ones or his one for us is still the same. And I guess that's where I kind of want to take that conversation because, you know, I believe that God is omnipresent and omniscient. Means all-knowing, and he's everywhere. He's in the past, he's in the present, he's in the future. So for somebody that, if we look at it from that lens, it kind of just gives the whole conversation away because God's plan is not different going into the new year because for him, arguably he's already lived that year. He already knows exactly what's gonna happen.
I
you
mean,
know?
yeah. I mean,
Well,
I forget where it's. I think it might be in Isaiah, but
Mhm.
his thoughts are higher than our
They're
thoughts.
not
His
thoughts,
ways-
exactly.
Honestly,
Mhm.
God probably thought of a different calendar than our
Mhm.
365-day
No,
calendar year.
our 365-day calendar year, I think it's actually a Roman thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's a Roman thing. And that's actually why I was watching, oh my gosh, shout out TikTok. I was watching this TikTok, and there was this black guy that was explaining that we actually celebrate the calendar wrong, because he was talking about how, like, the year should end, okay, September, October, November, December. Sept is 7, Oct is 8, Nov is 9, Dec is 10.
So that would mean
that's the-
January and February are 11 and 12?
No, well,
Or-
I forget how he was saying it, but he was saying that the last day we should have 10 months instead of 12. Yeah, that's what he was. If I remember correctly, he was saying because Dec means 10.
Yes.
In any other instance
In
outside,
geometry, yeah.
any other instance outside of calendar, like looking at calendar, Dec is 10, but December is 12. That's weird. So I remember what he was saying is there are 2 months in the calendar year that were added that wasn't supposed to be added into a calendar, and I think it was the Romans that did that, and that's what we celebrate.
That
today.
added the 2?
Yeah, added 2 months into our calendar, or
Okay.
into the modern day calendar that most of us follow.
If you were to take out 2 months, what 2 months would it be?
I forget the 2 months. I think it was sometime. It was sometime. I forget. I think it was the spring and summer, or summer and fall. I forget. But it was funny because he was like, yeah, because October 8,
Yeah.
September
September 7.
7, November Nov is 9. Even Nove, that's how you say 9 in Spanish. Like, it makes sense.
That's weird.
And Dec is 10.
I'm trying to think
So
of
like-
Hexagus? Like Hexagus, like August, like Hexagus?
I don't know, but that's a small tangent. But just going back into how for us everything is so meticulous and planned, and we like things that gives us a way to forecast for the future.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that comes, so, like, for us, like, and no matter how chaotic, I mean, you can be a very chaotic person, very fly by the seat of your pants, but
Mhm.
there is some semblance of patterns
Mhm.
or behaviors.
Mhm.
Like, humans by nature are behavioral people. Even if you're like, I have no plan,
Yeah.
you are still creating a rhythm
Yeah.
of some semblance of a lifestyle, and you
Yeah.
see patterns all throughout the world. And so
Yeah.
and that's why humans compartmentalize
Mhm.
things. We compartmentalize ideas. This is a really crude example, but we could go into your roots of what
Mhm.
tribe you come from
Mhm.
in Kenya,
Mhm.
but truly it is easier and quicker for you to say, I'm black,
Mm. Mm.
or I'm just African.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
easy.
It's easy.
It's easy to compartmentalize ideas, thought processes, and people
Mhm.
into smaller formats,
Mhm.
and which is a fine thing, because if you didn't, you'd be overloaded and you'd never be able to move
Mhm.
because you can't process. But we compartmentalize and we make shortcuts.
Yeah.
That's why, like, you don't have to think of 3 plus 3. You know, like, what is 3 plus 3? You just like
Mhm.
6.
You know it. Yeah.
You just know it because
all
it's a
memory,
pattern,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so humans by nature want a pattern,
Mhm.
and are more comfortable
Yeah.
with that.
And I think that's biblical, honestly. I think it's biblical because I think if you really like take the book and you study it, you start seeing patterns.
Would
You
you
start
like-
seeing prophecies. You start seeing meticulous ways that God placed things. It's no coincidence that the number 7, the
I'm
number
going
4,
to
and the
answer
number
you.
3.
I'm
know?
going to answer that
Yeah.
right here. Do you guys want to know what the first pattern was?
Yeah.
On the first
On the
day.
first day.
On the first day, God created the heavens and earth.
Yep.
On the second day,
Yep.
so on and so forth.
He-
6th day,
yep.
man.
Yep.
7th day rested.
Yep.
Right? So, God, and obviously, I don't want to debate on whether he actually did it in 7 days or if it was a long time. Whatever. But
Yeah.
God is creating a rhythm
Yeah.
of, honestly, he's creating a rhythm of, like, creation,
Mhm.
of being a creative, doing the work, and then delegating the
Yeah.
work. He delegates
Yeah.
a lot of work to man.
Yeah.
and then he rests.
He rests, yeah.
Right? So, no, that's not to say, like, oh, because God did it, like, we say, like, 6 days is working and 1 day rest, that's the lifestyle that you have to work. But there is a particular rhythm that is a balance of, I mean, man, we're about to go into really deep into Genesis, but there's a deep rhythm of, okay, God creates man, creates the earth, creates the heavens, creates a day of rest, and gives man work to do, gives him job and responsibility, a place to live, a place to manage. But it's understood throughout the early chapters of Genesis that they have time to walk together and talk together and be in a relationship and enjoy the fruits of the garden.
Being in the moment.
Right?
Yeah.
So there is a particular rhythm, and I think it's so easy to slip out of that and become consumed with one or the other, with the play side or the work side. And I mean, there's so many people who end up. Sorry, I'm going off. I'm going off right now.
You think Adam and Eve sat down and kind of made plans on what they were going to do next year?
Oh, heck no, they weren't. Bro, they were making plans on what fruit they were going to eat, which is why they fell. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No. But, like, and that's why oftentimes I'll hear people say, like, I regret the years I worked. Right? Like,
that's a big word that's starting to be used a lot.
Like, I regret it. Like, and there's so many things to regret. Like, I can't name names, obviously, because I'm a dentist, I'm HIPAA or whatever. But I hear so many stories, and there's a crisscross. And this is what's very confusing, Akko, is there are some people who will say, I just didn't plan well, I did all these things, I didn't take care of myself, and now I'm paying the price, and I'm living a really hard life at 60, 70 years old. I didn't know I was going to live this long, but now life is hard, and I don't even enjoy it. The other half is, I'm so old, and I worked really hard wanting to do all these things. I wanted to travel the world and go on vacation, do all these things, but my body's so old, my body can't do that.
Yeah. I'm starting to hear a lot of that in my family.
Right? And like that's hard to contend with, because then you have this backlash of the younger generation saying, well, forget it, we won't work, like we'll just do whatever we want. But that doesn't help either, because then the world, I mean, obviously the world's going to keep spinning, but truly, like,
and I think also it gets hard, and I think also money has a huge part to do with it.
Oh, for sure.
How much money you make, if you're a millionaire listening to this podcast, or if you only make $1,000 a month or a little bit more than that, you start realizing that how much money you have and how much money you've attained over the course of the year. You start planning for the things you're going to do in the following year, and these are tangible things or practical things.
Right.
You know, so when it comes into your spring breaks, into your vacations, and this is like if you work full time. Obviously, if you're a young adult or older, I mean, it's a little bit different if you're a student or if you're a younger listening to the podcast. But for the general majority of us listening, you know, you get to that point, especially like if you're in the years of in the middle of college or right after college, you know, in your core young adult years, money starts becoming a huge factor depending on things that you want to do or things that you want to aspire for. I'm newly married. I'm coming up to be a year this next week, actually. This weekend is me and Aaron's anniversary, so I'm excited for that. But I would be lying to you if I told you that this past year wasn't filled with a lot of financial planning. You know,
I remember this.
Or a lot of financial struggles within our planning.
Oh, for sure.
You know, setting a goal and not really meeting the goal the way we wanted to. So having that played the part in the way it did through our financial planning, looking into this next following year, it's very much on the forefront of what we want to decide and what we want to do and how we want to plan this upcoming year, because we have a kind of a mini structure of what we received last year and then what we accomplished, or more specifically what we didn't accomplish, and now refining that plan that we had last year into this next following year and saying, okay, now it's 2023, this is what we could do, this is what we planned for in 2022 financially, it didn't work out, now this is what we're planning financially in 2023, let's see how we can make it work. And then through your finances, everything else kind of flows. Not everything else. Most things kind of flow out of that.
It does.
So where you want to end up moving to, or if you're moving at all, where if you want to get married, or when you want to do your engagement, where your vacations are going to be spent, whether you're going to go see family during holidays, you know, what you're going to be doing on your weekends. Even I dare say how your workout routine is going to play out, because it's not just the gym you're going paying that membership. It's your meal plans. You know, it's your groceries. It's all these things that kind of have an effect on your finances.
Yes.
So you kind of are forced to have that new year, new you kind of mentality, because you're being forced to rearrange new ideas or new plans on the fiscal year that has just changed, to make sure that betters the year that just passed. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and
that does make sense.
Yeah, and I think that's an added kind of...
That's a different perspective that I
didn't
think
perspective
about.
That we have to think about it, because it's very much a factor. And I know, like, as Christians, as people who, you know, we want to abide by with God, and we know how much the love of money is so deterrent on that relationship with God.
Yes.
But we would be stupid to say money is not a huge factor in how we live our lives, and even how we can do our ministry, you know?
Yeah.
So...
it would be ludicrous to say that money is not, because like money is important. It is important. It's gonna reflect where you're headed and what you find most pertinent, right? So, I mean, really, like, if like there's so many things, like, for someone who wants to, you know, cares about his family and wants to put his kids in a really good school. It's just a ridiculous example. This is just hypothetical.
That's an example.
But like, you know, parents who want to put their kids in like a really good school system or whatever school system, or want certain tutoring, they're gonna put more money towards their kids and be like, hey, we don't have as much budget for, you know, having like hosting big parties, or if they were into that before. Or if it was like, hey, I'm gonna go and be able to put more towards this, you know, community thing.
Yeah, we're planning a wedding.
A wedding.
We're planning a wedding. We can't really do this the way we did it last year.
Right.
We can't like continue this tradition. I mean, here we are. Like a couple of weeks ago, we had a conversation with our community leaders.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we proposed is having a budget for, you know, our group, because that's gonna help us out do the things that we're planning for this new year. So yeah, it definitely is a factor. And I think another kind of coin I want to throw at you, and this is where we can kind of like land the plane, is when we look at the whole new year, new me situation. Let's say, for example, somebody's struggling with an addiction, or somebody's struggling with something, a mental illness, or somebody's struggling, like in my case, in a lot of areas with laziness or lack of passion to do whatever they're trying to do that's healthy and godly. Maybe going into a new year can be kind of that push and that ignition to rearrange your mindset. So, for example, let's say I'm struggling with alcoholism, and I've been a drunkard for 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And the next year is coming. I've just found myself in community, and my community is pushing for me to be celibate, to be sober.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's the end of December, the new year is coming. Man, my proposal this next year is to remain as sober-minded as possible, to remain in community, and to continue challenging myself to stay away from you know, alcohol. Yeah. I think that's a perspective that can be very, very healthy and can be very, very good to look at in looking at that. And maybe that's why a lot of people might have that mindset of, man, it's a new year, man, it's going to be a new me, because I'm going to focus on the addiction that I'm struggling, or I've been struggling with, and recognize that's not me. I'm going to allow God to recreate me to be a new creation.
Interesting.
You know, and that's something that Paul himself says, like, you are made a new creation if God is in you. So,
well, yeah, hold on, how much time do we have?
we got some time.
Okay,
about 25 minutes.
I'm gonna build off of that. Yeah. I mean, I know at the start I was bashing, and I was just looking at it from a narrow lens. That's my fault, but if you're blending that idea, I really like that. Is oftentimes why it's so difficult to do these New Year's resolutions is without the lens that you brought in that says like
Mm-hmm.
where Paul says in Christ you're a new creation,
Mhm.
you've been washed away. Without that,
Mhm.
you don't have, unless you're just built different.
Mhm.
It's really hard to have an inner voice that tells you that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's so easy to get overwhelmed with the process.
Yeah. With the mundaneness of the process.
Yeah, just the steadiness of the
Mhm.
process. Like, a lot of times, okay, like, let's put it this way. I'm going to use, like, alcohol as an
Mhm.
example.
Mhm.
It's not just the quitting alcohol,
Mhm.
right? At least in my opinion. It's not just the quitting alcohol. It's not like you're from the starting point and then you're going into, like, oh, the good land.
Mhm.
You're actually in deep waters
Mhm.
and you're getting back to neutral.
Mhm.
And then you have to fill up your life with other things besides alcohol,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that is very difficult because you actually had a priority time spent
Mhm.
with drinking. And when you're like, okay, I'm going to stop drinking, what do I do with my time? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to fill up my time because I'm bored, or I'm upset, I don't know how to cope yet. So there's a process, and sometimes the undoing, we get overwhelmed with the undoing of our bad habits or lifestyles before we even get to the rebuilding.
Yeah.
And that is literally one of the most difficult things. And I believe as Christians, we should be the ones who most clearly feel this and understand this.
Mhm.
Because we just read it was Pastor, not Chad.
Pastor Phil.
No, not Phil. He went over to Saudi Arabia.
Oh, Luke?
Luke, Pastor Luke.
Yeah.
He talked about is it 1 Corinthians? He talked to us at Unashamed. Basically, is the idea of our eyes have been covered.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
By this present, you weren't at Unashamed, that's why you don't remember. But
I know.
yeah, at this present age, like, it's basically the grace of why Paul even has this ministry. It's a chapter 3. I don't know what book, but it's chapter 3.
Mhm.
3. And it's by God's grace that you even have this ministry of this present age.
Mhm.
Their eyes have been covered. As Christians, I believe we should most clearly and rightly understand just how overbearing the process is.
Yeah.
Just trying to do it ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
if we really, like, reflect and think back, and which is why I think it's important to reflect on
Yeah.
the past years, dang, like, without Christ,
Yeah.
who the heck am I? Like, why would anyone want to be near me? Why would anyone want to talk to me? What value do I have? Right? And you could say, like, oh no, you have great qualities, but, like, truly at your core, like, I'm lazy, I'm selfish, like, when no one's around, I'm like, yeah, forget it. You know, and so I think having a deep look at yourself like that, you're like, oh, this is a lot of work. Like, first of all, I want to work on this, but why would anyone approach, who would even have the heart to approach me? Because I suck.
That's true. Yeah. I think, I completely hear you and I agree with that kind of mindset. And
But then there's the gospel.
there's the gospel. And
Right.
I think this is where I kind of just want to kind of bring it all together and kind of propose, instead of, oh, new year, new me, and then that be it. Or new year, new you versus new year, same God. Bring it all together. Yeah, a new year can be a new you.
Yeah.
However, you also have to notice that, or recognize that, even though it's a new you, it's the same God. Or you could look at it as in new year, same me,
Okay.
comma, same God.
Yeah.
And where I'm going with that is, let's say for somebody who might have my perspective and say, okay, I'm going to the new year. Yes, there's a couple of different things that I'm planning to do better or to strive for this next year.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm changing to be a new creation, because I'm already a new creation.
Yeah.
And God is still the same, but I'm just adding more workload into this next year that I didn't have the year before.
Yeah.
Or I'm asking God to open up opportunities for me to meet with people or be an influence to somebody else, whether it's through mentorship or discipleship that I didn't before. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's not necessarily you becoming a new creation or you becoming a new person, new me, quote unquote. You're just being given more responsibility.
Yeah.
Kind of like in our physical lives, every single time we celebrate our birthdays, we don't put on a new body. It's just our body's maturing.
Right.
You know, so we can look at it from that lens, or if it's in the lens of somebody kind of starting a resolution, if I can use that word, or a goal.
Right.
Whether it's through addiction, or whether it's through trying to get more physically healthy, or somebody who's trying to play the guitar or an instrument, or whatever the case may be that you're planning for the next fiscal year that just started. When you say, yes, this is a new thing or a new me that I'm trying to become, don't forget that God is still the same. And I think having that perspective is gonna, bear with me, it's gonna really change and shift the way we view the years that we're coming into. Because, for example, let's go back to that alcohol addicted individual. Let's say they have chosen to be in community towards the end of the year, and they're pushing for their next year. Their resolution is to remain in that community, being made into a new individual that abstains from alcohol.
Yeah.
I think that individual also needs to recognize that God is still the same God in that next year that he was in the year that when he was struggling. God would never change. God was still calling towards him. God was in the moment where he was available, however, his eyes were closed and he wasn't able to see. Kind of like in when we read the Gospels, like God was on the move, yes, but God never went anywhere. It's not like God got lost in the whole Old Testament and then he appeared in the book of John.
Right.
Actually, what I was going to read is in John 1:1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. He was with God all throughout. And this is obviously John talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think, to push it back to you, Stephen, I think having the perspective of, when I go into this next fiscal year, and when I start planning, whether it's by yourself, or whether it's with your spouse, or whether it's with your family, and you start planning of the things that you're going to do in this next year, realize that God is very much in this next year that you're going into, the same way he was in the year before, the same way he's going to be in the year after. And including him in the planning is going to be much more beautiful than meeting him along the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Including him in the planning is going to be much more useful than meeting him along the way. And what I mean by that is, let's say, like, I'm planning to go to a missions trip in July, and I'm gonna live my life and do whatever I want, and then once the July timeline comes to be, that's when you start like, oh yeah, God, like, please bless my trip, and like all this stuff, like, man, yeah, like, look what I'm doing for Jesus, X, Y. No, you know what I mean? Like, but that's what some people do these days.
Gosh. Yes.
Like,
yes.
they meet God along the way as if he wasn't there to begin with.
Yeah. Oh man, I've definitely fallen to that even in this past year. Like, just the idea of like praying along the way, especially like with decisions about like career or relationships. I'm like,
relationships is a big one too. Is like I'm gonna do it on my own, and then I'm gonna pick God off the highway as if he's a hitchhiker. You know, I'm gonna pursue this girl as much as I know how to, as much as I'm willing to, and like please my flesh. And then when it starts getting hard with accountability, with purity, that's when I'm gonna be like, okay, yeah, God, you can not help me out. I'll pick you up. You know, like, no, that's not a mindset that we should go into the new year kind of having.
Yeah.
You know?
Gosh, there's so many different ways I want to take this now. And it's going into all the topics that you've previously suggested. It's wild. But one thing, again, I don't know how much time we have, but I want to end it off with this.
Yeah.
And really trying to round off this idea of, with people who are making resolutions and find themselves to be failing, this idea that we as Christians have a most high priest, like a God who is the same. Akko, can you shed some light or give some imagery to this same God that you've never had to rely on a new year to make a change, but that you have fully relied on him to make a change?
I mean, it's the best example I can give you is the God that I had a vision of before I got saved when I was growing up. I believe that this God was a God that was full of anger, and that was a God that was full of punishment, and it was a God that was full of envy and jealousy. And the reason why I believe that is because I thought that I was not somebody that God loved. I didn't have God's love. At least that was my perspective. And I grew up very, very reactive to the love of God, and I didn't want it to be, I didn't want it to mean anything in my life because of the reality that he was playing in my cards and in the family situation and in me like growing up in Kenya and all the hardships that brought. But it's funny because when I ended up giving my life to Christ in my college years, it's not that God magically stopped hating me and invited me into his family. No, God was still loving, and he was still himself. He was still the same back when I thought he was different.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't God becoming a new creation. No, it's me, my eyes becoming open and realize that, God wasn't hating me. God never hated me. God wasn't punishing me. God was teaching me and lovingly showing me the maturity that he was in trusting in me to have the love that I'm now able to give through his love.
Mm-hmm.
But for me at the time, I could tell you, no, that was a different God. If I wasn't a Christian right now, I'll tell you, no, that God is very different from the God that I've been boasting about in the last year and a half that you've known me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's something or a perspective that maybe some of you guys may have or might have had in the past, where you saw God as something else, and through a transition that happened, whether that was you receiving him or whether it was a tragedy that happened, because it could also happen the other way around, where you could grow up in church, where you could grow up very strong in your faith, and then whether you fall in love with the same gender or whether something unfortunate happens in your life, you completely shift and you're like, oh, God is a different God now. He's shifted. Now God is not a loving God, or God doesn't love my family, or God is an all-inclusive God, and now he includes, love is love, and you kind of destroy his identity and you make him a brand new creation, according to your perspective.
Yeah.
So it could happen both ways.
Yeah. And I man, that's so important that you bring that up. Is that this is like,
yeah, we
gosh,
we'll
but like
we'll talk about
it's so important to understand that okay, here's what I'm gonna put is God is 100% the shining standard, and it would be foolish for us to think that to distort him to make it easier for us to be right with ourselves is the correct thing to do. It is whatever he has decreed, like, bro, that's it. And like, that is hard. Totally get it. That is Old Testament. It's hard. You fail at every single point. But I'm going to bring it back as this is what makes the gospel so beautiful and what makes Jesus so beautiful. So to the point that you're making, I think what is most important about this idea of the same God is if we end up trying to distort God, which he is like the perfect state, like he is the shining standard as the one we believe as Christians, is the one who created the world and formed it in the way it is, and he has a decree of like, this is the way I want things.
Yeah.
It would be ludicrous for us to think like we can morph him into something he's not to see ourselves in a better light.
Yeah. We'll give ourselves more odds to accomplish that thing that we want to do.
Yes. And I think this is where the gospel comes in, is because if we end up not distorting him, it does become overwhelming. It becomes unbearable of how far we are from God. And honestly, in a lot of ways, us being blinded by how flawed we are is kind of a defense mechanism. And the only way to approach the reality of how flawed we are in relation to God is the gospel of Jesus Christ. There's no other way. There's no other option other than self-medicating yourself. Because what the gospel is Jesus God in the flesh, coming in the form of a babe, taking on our own weakness, understanding it all, and becoming a living sacrifice for us. So what was now so distant has such a heart to understand us in our weakness where he has no weakness, and takes it on fully so that he can accept us and understand us. And he doesn't do it in a way that he he fails in our right, but he takes on the consequences of everything that we have done
Yeah.
that is wrong, and he does that on the cross.
Yeah. And it's funny because the cross, that's such a significant moment, obviously, but it's such a pinpointed moment.
Yeah.
It's a moment, it's a single moment in timeline that can't be changed
Mm-hmm.
and will never ever be replicated.
Yeah. And I think this is going to be, and this is not the full gospel, but I think what is really, really cool symbolically, and honestly one of the most life-giving things, is the cross, is its original intent, and I think it still is the most painful way to die as a human.
Painful and shameful.
Painful and shameful,
Mm-hmm.
and everything leading up to it.
Mm.
In a lot of ways, we as humans represent the cross. Everything we are about, all the wars we've ever created have been the most painful and been the most depraved-filled parts, and we're doing it to ourselves.
Mm.
Yet God in human form takes it on willingly in order to redeem us.
Yeah.
How beautiful is that, to have a God who bleeds for us.
Yeah.
Not just a God who bleeds, but a God who bleeds for us.
Yeah.
And at his core, that's his very heart, is to come back into relationship with us.
Yeah.
And I would say for me, Akko, that is probably the driving force behind why I even get to change.
Yeah.
Why I even get to make changes to be better.
Yeah. And I think, to kind of just bring it all together and wrap it up, a beautiful, beautiful example that we're given in the Bible is the story of the prodigal son.
Whew,
And
yeah.
we can look at it from three different perspectives, but the two perspectives I want to focus on is the son
Yeah.
and the father.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
How the son, this is assumptions obviously, but let's say hypothetically it was the beginning of a new year and the son had an enlightenment. Oh, it's new year, new me.
Bro, I'm going off to college.
I'm gonna go off and I'm gonna spend my possessions.
He's not going off to college. He's going to
Yeah.
Silicon Valley, bro.
Yeah.
He's trying to make it big in
I'm gonna
California.
yeah, but that idea is I'm gonna go off and I'm gonna plan for myself.
Yeah.
I'm gonna focus for myself. I'm gonna do whatever, I want to do
Yeah.
at my timeline with whoever I want.
Yes.
In whatever pace I want to do it in, right?
Yeah.
And you see in the story that he ends up going and using up all his money
Mm-hmm.
to the point where he has no money left. He has no possessions left. He has nothing. He has no assets left.
Yeah.
So he ends up working as a slave almost.
Yep.
Digging up farm poop and eating that same poop
With the pigs.
with the pigs.
Yeah.
And then he finally has an awakening and he's like, man, I'm living worse off right now than I was when I was in the crib with my dad.
He says worse than his father's servants.
Worse
were underneath me.
Worse than the servants who are underneath
Yeah.
me. And we all know the story if we read it in the Bible, or we know it by trade. We know that he ends up saying, man, I'm gonna go back home, not even as a son, but as a slave.
I'll ask my dad to work for him.
I'll ask my dad to work for him.
Yeah.
And you see the humility and the humbleness that he has to have. Not the humility and the humbleness, excuse me. The disrespect and the lack of identity that he has to even look at his dad as a slave master, not even as a father.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I just want to get him on his good grace, because I've disrespected him, disrespected his position,
Yeah.
disrespected my identity, disrespected everything that I have in my name.
Yeah.
And then we know in the story that he ends up coming back home, and when his dad sees him from far away,
Mm.
he runs towards him and he hugs him, he gives him his signet ring, he puts his robe on him, and he brings him home, they have a feast, and they do all those things. And the question I'll say, or I'll propose to you, is in that case, in that story, we see two parties, or two different sides of the story. A side of the story where a son takes it upon his yoke to plan and to say, new year, new me, in this context, and say, I'm going to do these things for myself, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to see what the world has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to indulge myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a father who's like, I'm still here. If anything, I'm still loving you, and I'm still caring for you, and I'm still worried about you, and I'm still wanting to, hold you in my arms, and you're still my son, and I'm still your father, and I still love you, and I still care for you. In a lot of ways, that's God. Whether you're in His home, in His party, or whether you're running away chasing after the world, God is saying, I'm still your father. I still love you. I'm still waiting for you. Like I'm look at times I'm chasing after you.
Yeah.
But that's a story and a perspective that really touches me in a lot of ways when I look at the way my life has played out, or even the lives of people that I know are playing out. And it comes back to this whole mindset of when we kind of approach this new season or this new timeline in our lives, when we're like, all right, it's a new timeline, or it's a new year, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, or I'm gonna plan for X, Y, and Z. Let's not forget and neglect that God is still right there. And He should very much deserve all the credit for not just being there, but honestly putting us there.
Yeah.
And having the perspective to even plan it out in general. So, yeah. Oh man, that's a lot, but Happy New Year, bro.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year. Gong Hei Pa Shui for those of the people listening who are Chinese. That's when we recorded it, was right before Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
Kate, you're one of them.
Yeah. But yeah, Happy New Year, guys.
Yes.
And hopefully you guys are able to, were able to get a little bit out of it, if anything. Or if you just wanted to hear us ramble for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not that long. Hopefully
It will be, as it always is.
But yeah, man.
Akko, this was great.
It was great.
Yes.
Excited for what has to come. And until later, we are Steven and Akko in the flesh.
The Imperfect Podcast.
This is the Imperfect Podcast. Peace.